Okay, I had a couple clear thoughts, and I can just tell that the I'm gonna run up on the clock with this one, so please bear with me. But I wanted to say one. So in another video I did, the previous series I did to this one, I was saying sometimes you don't know what you just saw when you saw something. So I was saying, imagine you are taking a trip into the wilderness, not necessarily deep into the wilderness, not necessarily hiking or camping, but just say you're visiting someone in a remote area. Now I have a family member. So I have a family from the northern United States, and my mother was she had a very close friend, a close group of friends in childhood. And I put in another video that sometimes the relationship between girls, between women, and also between men and between boys, it can be a lot of different things at once. It can be deeper than lovers, deeper than friends, deeper than sisters. And there's actually maybe not a word for it, but some of the relationships that girls have together and women have, and also boys and men, they can last a lifetime. And it's such a profound bond that it's difficult to explain, and how they can be so close later in life and pick up right where they left off, and also respect each other's respective lifestyles and choices and different paths in life, yet still be connected. My mom and some of her friends from life and in childhood, they live all across the country, and they only visit each other seldom. But when they visit, you can tell that whatever bond they have, it never ceased to exist, and it never broke, even as far as they would have went across the earth globetrotting from each other or doing different lifestyles. But that bond is so deep between them. But my and I was thinking that that actually might be the closest thing we can ever understand of what's called great, or what's called divine, is that type of bond between people. It's unique between different people, like between people in a family or friends, or different walks of life. But that bond is the deepest, is the deepest thing that I know of. But a lot of my mom's family, both her own family and her friends, they do like a lot of like extreme stuff. Like they can't, like me, I can have a good time like just like listening to music like alone, like and maybe like if I have something to go with the music, it's a good time. Her company would be good too, but just something to go with the music. But they more so have to do like rugged things, like they have to like go out of doors, or like they have to live like in a ranch or a farm. And one of my mother's friends, we visited her about maybe 40 or 50 miles outside of town, and they had a little farm. They had a little house where they had neighbors nearby, but each house is like maybe a good 50 or 100 yards away from each other, and there's a good amount of ground between each house. But then even they themselves, they have property, so they have like a back area where you have maybe about a good I'm not sure how many acres go, but you have at least a couple hundred yards, a few yards of just lawn. And she was a avid and brilliant gardener. But then you have a patch of woods back there, and she was telling me about some that they actually have like coyotes and wolves coming through there. And I see a good amount of coyotes and wolves even in the very city limits where I live. I saw one less than a week ago, a coyote running by when I was doing a delivery, and I always see them in specific areas of town. But you actually have them right in town, and sometimes you have a lot of people here that like to go walking with dogs, or running in all hours of the night. And I had a client once who she had a small dog that she would go out on a regular pattern, a regular schedule. And I was talking in this video about how you can appreciate what's going to happen. You can have a sense of pre-science and predestiny, and divination. I don't mean to be flippant with the word divination, but you can have an appreciation of future events, what's called future events, simply if you understand the cycles at play, no less than a person's schedule. So this woman that I cared for, she had a dog, and this it was a big dog, and I was caring for her in her home. And I don't look at myself as entirely different than an animal. I don't forget that humans are animals. So when we walk in this small apartment, now she's very comfortable with that dog, and that dog essentially respects her. But that's a big animal right there. And I didn't feel exactly comfortable that close with an animal, but I was maybe a little bit, that's actually a little bit form of prejudice to look at the animal like that and assume that I would have to have a problem with him because he might be used to being treated kind or friendly. And then here I am looking somewhat antagonistic or unsure about him. And then that brings out his instincts of being unsure. And so now he is a little bit more formidable, but that's more so just me being awkward and not being confident in that time. So sometimes you can bring out things in people that didn't have to be there. And that's an example of, but what I wanted to say is that, and then she left me alone with the animals. Sometimes it's like just me and this big dog, and it was a little bit unsettling for someone that's not used to dogs. But she said that she had been in another part of town, and an actual coyote had figured out the pattern of her and that dog, and that coyote was waiting to meet them at certain times according to their schedule, and she was unsettled by that. But then this other friend of my mother's, they had like a property, and she's saying that some of these coyotes, like they'll come and they'll court a small dog, and then they'll get the dog to socialize and banter with them, and then they'll get the dog off isolated, and then a group of them will converge on the dog and consume the dog in a very disheartening way, a very, but it's still nature. But so when she was telling me about those coyotes, I wouldn't want to walk all the way out there to those woods, even 50 yards, even 100 yards out there into the lawn, being a city slicker, because like you said, you have coyotes around here, and if I walk that far, as fast as dogs are, there's nothing saying that a coyote can't get in between me and your little homestead before I would make it back. So I was very comfortable being close to their home, but you're actually more so in danger wherever you're comfortable. But so that's just an example how people are comfortable with different things. But sometimes you don't know what you just saw. So if you can imagine like taking a trip somewhere and you're getting a little bit out of the city, and then you see some deer looking at you, those deer, you don't, I sometimes think that things are more than what they look like. So when you saw that deer, you might have actually saw a wolf looking at you, because for one thing, a lot of things are exactly their opposite. So I think that when you're talking to a beautiful woman, you're essentially talking to a beautiful man, because in the first place, anything you text her, anything you say to her can be shown, and likely will be shown, to another man with any degree of history or background or constitution or intention. Is that man good or bad? But likely whatever you say or do in front of a woman will be ran by another man, or another man will see you talking to her. Because I've never seen I've actually almost never seen a woman in life that wasn't attended by a man, or I quickly saw a man shortly thereafter, unless we were in some unique circumstance. There's always usually a man very close to a woman, and from that perspective, you can understand that the actual man is the woman. They're not physically connected, but they're spiritually connected, so they're the same thing. And in some ways, a man is the prey of a woman, and a woman is the prey of a man. But it's like a symbiotic relationship, so it works out, and life happens with that. But it's still symbiotic. But you could also say the relationship between a wolf and a deer is still symbiotic, because the deer checks the population and also the competition of other deer. So the wolf checks the population, therefore the competition of other deer. So the wolf actually makes life viable for the deer, because if the wolf wasn't there, the other deer would make life not viable for the deer. So you could say that it's a symbiotic relationship between the wolf and the deer, where the wolf actually supplies for the deer, as indirect as that would seem, as profound as that would be, and then the deer provides for the wolf. And that's where I'm going with the next topic. But from that perspective, you could say that at least spiritually they're not different, but also physically they're not different, because the predator is never that far away from the food source, or the food source that from the predator. So you drive in a remote area like that, and you see a deer, or a group of deer just watching you like that. For intensive purposes, you've just been watched by a wolf. Or if a deer was that close to you, the wolf may have been in concealment, and you likely were observed by a deer, as sure as you are sure that you were observed by you can be as sure that you were observed by a wolf at some point unknown to you, as sure as you are sure that you were observed by a deer known to you. And maybe the deer was more so checking you out, or even courting you for the sake of the wolf on a spiritual level, if you think in those terms.